Today's text is from 1 Peter chapter 1 verses 1 to 12. Today, I will share the message with the title of I am greatly pleased. Since Jesus ascended, Christianity has grown at a rapid pace. The church was built around the apostles, and many people believed in Jesus. He was hated by the Jews and even persecuted by Rome. In the early church era, there were two great persecutions of Rome. The first persecution was the persecution of Emperor Nero, and the second persecution was the persecution of Emperor Domitian. The persecution of the latter, recorded by the Apostle Paul, is generally at the time of the persecution of Nero. And the Bible, such as John's Gospel and John's Revelation recorded by John the Apostle, can be seen at the time of the persecution of Emperor Domitian. The book we read today is known by the words Peter wrote. And this book is estimated to be in the mid-60s when Paul was imprisoned and executed. In other words, it seems to be the time of the persecution of Emperor Nero. Therefore, the contents of 1 Peter are mostly composed of matters related to suffering. When the suffering comes to the saints, we deal primarily with practical questions about how the saints respond and overcome. The country that experienced revival in the earliest time in the history of Christianity is probably Korea. Despite the fact that Christianity was only 100 years old, the largest church in the world is in the Republic of Korea, and about half of the world's large churches are in the Republic of Korea. So why did Korean churches revive in the short term? There is a special theology in Korea. It is a prosperity theology. The key message of prosperity theology is Jesus blesses you when you believe, and the word blessing here refers mainly to the blessing of the world. In other words, for those who believe in Jesus, the poverty of life is overcome in better lives. To get out of poverty, to recover or heal health, to go to better schools, to get a better job, and so on. When Korea was poor, people began to come to church to live better, and people who actually went to church actually accumulated a lot of wealth. In fact, the uncomfortable fact is that people who do not go to church have accumulated a lot of wealth during that time. The Bible clearly speaks of suffering for Christians. Paul tells Timothy, the spiritual son, suffer with the gospel. Jesus also told his disciples that trouble would come. The believers in the Bible also kept faith in many sufferings. But it is not easy to talk to someone who is suffering. In that moment of suffering, no comfort, no words are heard. So it is important that Christians keep their minds. You can take the master of my heart and mind as Jesus, and be governed by Jesus. In today's speech, Peter speaks rather, 1 Pt 1-6. In this very rejoice. You may have a little while to grief in all kinds of trials. The tests they were given were realistic. There was a real persecution, not vaguely tough. The persecution could have killed her life. And indeed many Christians lost their lives. But Paul is exhorting him to rejoice greatly. How is this possible? Pleasure requires conditions. The condition must have a positive impact, not a negative impact. However, the conditions the saints faced were not positive. He was burned to death, throat cut, leather peeled, and crucified. It was a beast of food, and it was pierced by a window. Could I be happy in this condition? Nevertheless, we are told to be pleased. Not only Peter, but Paul also tells him to rejoice. I always told him to be happy. I was pleased even in prison. There is only one reason for this. It is the kingdom of God. We can overcome our hopes for the kingdom of God. We can win by faith in the kingdom of God. There will be members in difficulty now. The obvious fact is that there is a kingdom of God, and that it is reserved for us. Faith was said to be the reality of things hoped for. What we want is the kingdom of God, and it will be done. May we overcome our faith in the kingdom of God. You must win. I can be rather pleased. I pray that Jesus, being the source of joy, will be full of joy every day. It is our great pleasure to remember our salvation and to be part of all of us who enjoy the kingdom of God every day.